Section 1. Fancy joint locks do not survive real violence. Hapkido wrist tricks versus Taekwondo roundhouse precision versus broken bones. One of these lies to you. Everyone worships fancy joint locks until adrenaline turns the fight feral. Today we smash delicate Hapkido wrist tricks head on with the bone-breaking violence of a Taekwondo roundhouse. When panic hits and pain explode, which fails first, precision or ribs? Can a wrist lock end a real fight before a kick ends you? No slow demos, no cooperative partners, no master-level timing, just chaos, bad footing, tunnel vision, and raw violence. One side is betting on fine motor control under stress. The other bets on blunt force trauma. In the real world, which one survives and which one collapses the moment things go wrong? Dramatic claim, delicate locks versus blunt force. Joint locks are delicate. Roundhouse kicks are blunt force. That is the claim, clear and cold. We will test which ends a real fight faster. We will use real fight simple science as our guide. We will call out myths and show failure modes. We will explain how stress changes bodies and control. We will be blunt and refuse prettiness. The final decision will be sharp, not polite. Section 2. Quick favor, like the video to reach more martial artists. A bar fight scene you can smell. Picture a bar fight. Fluorescent light, spilled beer, a broken glass, people shout, someone shoves, you are tired and hungry. Your hands shake, your heart hammers, your brain stops filing facts and starts reacting. You see one thing, you see two things, you do not see the whole room, your vision narrows to the threat. You do not have time for subtlety, you do not have a partner who taps. The opponent will not politely yield, they will push. Section 3. Why wrist locks often break down. We've seen them in movies and martial arts demonstrations. An elegant, seemingly effortless twist that brings a larger opponent to their knees. But the reality of a violent encounter is a world away from the controlled environment of a dojo. The very elegance of the wrist lock is its greatest vulnerability. It's a technique built on a foundation of assumptions, and in a real fight, every one of those assumptions is likely to be shattered. Let's start with the physics. Wrist locks are a game of fine motor skills. They rely on the small, intricate muscles of your fingers and forearms to apply pressure to specific tiny bones and ligaments in your opponent's wrist. This is a delicate, precise application of force. They need precise angles. A wrist lock isn't about brute strength, it's about leverage. Think of it like using a very small, specific key to turn a very specific lock. If the angle is off by even a few degrees, the key doesn't turn, the pressure is misapplied, the joint doesn't get compromised, and the lock fails. You're just holding their arm. They also require your opponent to be roughly where you expect them to be, maintaining a specific distance and orientation. They need your feet to be planted to create a stable base from which to generate that precise rotational torque. They need your hands to be clean and dry because the entire technique depends on a high friction grip. And most critically, they need the attacker to respond like a compliant training partner. That is a dangerously long list of requirements for the chaos of a real fight. Now let's introduce the single biggest factor that dismantles this entire system: adrenaline. Under the intense stress of a violent confrontation, your body undergoes a physiological cascade. Your hands clench and sweat, immediately compromising that essential friction grip. Your fingers lose fine motor control. The precise, delicate movements needed for a wrist lock become impossible. Your body defaults to what it knows best under pressure: gross motor skills. Instead of the subtle twist of a wrist, your brain screams for the blunt force of an elbow. Instead of delicate leverage, your shoulder gets used for raw power, to push or to strike. Your body instinctively chooses a hammer over a scalpel. You begin to apply force, not precise torque. The lock that looked so effortless in the controlled quiet of a class becomes a fumbling, slow, and desperate grab in the real world. Time is what a wrist lock asks for. Time to set the grip, time to find the angle, time to apply pressure correctly. In a street fight, time is the one resource you do not have. Every fraction of a second spent fumbling with a delicate lock is a moment your attacker can use to hurt you. And what about the attacker? They will not tap out like in sparring. There is no referee. Most people, especially when fueled by aggression or intoxicants, will simply punch through the pain. Adrenaline is a powerful analgesic. It can make the body ignore sharp, localized hurts in favor of survival. The pain of a wrist lock might not even register until long after the fight is over. Instead of complying, people will move in unexpected directions to escape. They will pull, twist, and yank their arm with explosive force. or they will use that moment of your concentration to attack again. A wrist lock can be countered by a simple, brutal stomp to your foot or knee. It can be broken by a shoulder charge that shatters your stance, or it can be defeated by a simple, violent twist that breaks your balance and your grip. The subtlety of the lock fails against the overwhelming chaos of a real assault. The physics are sound, but the application is fragile. It's a high-risk, low-reward gamble in a situation where you can't afford to lose. When your brain perceives a legitimate threat, it doesn't ask for permission. It triggers a primal, evolutionary cascade designed for one purpose: survival. This is the fight-or-flight response, and it begins with a massive surge of adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. This isn't a subtle shift. It's a complete system override. Your heart rate skyrockets, pumping oxygenated blood not to your brain for complex thought, but to the major muscle groups. Your pupils dilate and your vision narrows into a tight cone, a phenomenon known as tunnel vision. Your brain is sacrificing peripheral awareness to focus every available resource on the immediate threat directly in front of you. The most critical change for our purposes is the radical degradation of fine motor control. The same neurochemical cocktail that makes you stronger also makes you clumsy. Blood is shunted away from the extremities, your fingers and hands, to power the large muscles of your legs, back, and shoulders. This is called vasoconstriction. Your hands get cold, clammy, and lose dexterity. The precise, delicate movements required for complex joint locks, pressure point strikes, or manipulating small objects become biologically improbable. Your body is preparing for a brawl, not a ballet. In contrast, your gross motor functions are supercharged. Strength spikes in your large muscle groups. Your legs feel coiled like springs, ready to drive you forward or backward with explosive force. Your hands, while clumsy, can form powerful, crude grips. This is survival, not grace. Your brain prioritizes these gross actions. It defaults to what is simple, powerful, and has the highest probability of success under extreme duress. Think about the difference. A multi-step wrist lock requiring precise finger placement versus a straight punch. A delicate nerve pinch versus a powerful shove. A complex leg sweep versus a simple driving kick. Any training that relies on tiny coordinated finger work is fighting an uphill battle against your own biology. The body simply favors big, simple outputs under pressure. Now, training can mitigate some of this. Through relentless, repeated stress inoculation, you can make certain patterns more automatic. By practicing techniques under physical and psychological load, when you're exhausted, when your heart is pounding, you can slightly improve your ability to execute them. But even for elite operators, the failure rate for fine motor techniques remains dangerously high in real-world encounters. The baseline is clear. Stress enhances gross motor striking and grappling, but it fundamentally degrades fine motor locks and submissions. The practical takeaway is to build your defensive framework around movements that align with what your body does naturally under fear. Work with your physiology, not against it. This brings us to the most common points of failure. Section 6. Real failure modes. The first and most common is simply slips. Section 5. Medical outcomes versus practical stoppage. In the chaotic moments of a real confrontation, the only outcome that matters is the one that ends the threat. To understand why blunt force trauma so often outperforms small joint manipulation, we need to look beyond the technique and analyze the medical reality of the injuries they cause. We're not just talking about pain, we're talking about systemic failure. Let's compare the fight-stopping potential of a hard body shot against a wrist lock, starting with the ribs. A broken rib is a catastrophic structural failure. The immediate searing pain is just the beginning. Every breath becomes a battle against sharp stabbing agony because the intercostal muscles, essential for respiration, are now pulling on a fractured frame. This isn't just discomfort. It's a direct attack on your body's engine. Your ability to oxygenate your blood plummets, and with it, your capacity for any explosive athletic movement. Movement is severely compromised. Twisting, reaching, even bracing for impact becomes excruciating. In severe cases, multiple fractures can lead to a flail chest, where a segment of the rib cage detaches and moves paradoxically with breathing, leading to respiratory collapse. And the most critical danger, a sharp broken rib end can easily puncture a lung, causing a pneumothorax. Air fills the chest cavity, collapsing the lung and creating a life-threatening emergency. An attacker with a busted rib is functionally crippled. While a rare individual might try to power through with a suicide grip on pain, Their breath control is gone, their mobility is a fraction of what it was, and their structural integrity is compromised. The fight, for all practical purposes, is over. Now let's examine the wrist. A successfully applied lock can cause immense pain and, in a perfect scenario, a fracture or dislocation. But the path to that outcome is fraught with variables. A sore or sprained wrist is annoying, but it is rarely a systemic failure. Adrenaline is a powerful analgesic. In the heat of a fight, many people can and will fight through the pain of a twisted wrist, especially if a fracture doesn't occur. Unlike a broken rib, a wrist injury doesn't shut down the body's core functions. An attacker can still breathe, move their feet, and use their other arm, head, and legs to continue the assault. The pain is localized, not systemic. This is why we see fighters tape their fingers and wrists. The goal is stabilization, allowing them to ignore the pain and continue functioning. A twisted wrist without a clean break often allows for continued, albeit degraded, aggression. This makes wrist locks a far less reliable fight ender. The same principle applies to other targets. A hard kick to the peroneal nerve on the outside of the thigh can create a dead leg. This isn't just a painful Charlie horse, it's a temporary neurological shutdown of the limb. The brain signals to the leg are disrupted, making it impossible to bear weight. A dead leg immediately destroys an opponent's mobility, balance, and power generation. It costs them time, space, and options, leaving them a stationary target. The verdict from a medical and practical standpoint is clear. While small joint locks have their place, they target localized areas that can often be fought through. Blunt force trauma to major targets, the ribs, the liver, the solar plexus, the thigh, causes systemic failure. It shuts down breathing, mobility, and consciousness. When immediate stoppage is the goal, real-world outcomes overwhelmingly favor blunt force. Thank you for viewing. Please tell us what you think in the comments below. See you at one of the videos on your screen.